DNA studies of the people from Indus Valley Civilization (IVC), including samples from sites like Rakhigari, show a continuity of genetic lineages between the Harappans and later Indian populations. From Harappan period to Vedic era and later through the Mauryas, Guptas, Cholas and many other great dynasties, India shows a consistent thread of spiritual thought, social structure and cultural evolution. Namaskar friends, I welcome you all to the digital media of Uday Bharat National, and today in Baat Bharat Ki, I want to speak about the myth of the Aryan invasion, celebrating the indigenous roots of Indian civilization. One of the most debated and controversial theories in Indian history has been the Aryan invasion theory. You all know that. And this theory suggests that around 1500 BCE, a group of Indo-European people known as Aryans invaded India from Central Asia, overpowering the indigenous Indus Valley civilization and laying the foundation for the Vedic culture. For decades, this theory has been presented as the cornerstone of ancient Indian history, often framing Indian civilization as a product of external influence. However, modern scientific research has increasingly exposed the flaws in this colonial era narrative. So recently, a team of Indo-US researchers presented compelling genetic and archaeological evidence that directly challenges the idea of a large-scale migration or invasion from Central Asia. DNA studies of the people from Indus Valley Civilization (IVC), including samples from sites like Rakhigari, show a continuity of genetic lineages between the Harappans and later Indian populations. This means that the people who lived during the Indus Valley period and those in post-Vedic times share the same ancestral roots. There is no disruptive invasion or massive population replacement as previously claimed. The Aryan invasion theory was originally formulated in the 19th century by European scholars who, observing linguistic similarities between Sanskrit and other Indo-European languages, so they concluded that Sanskrit-speaking Aryans must have migrated to India. This is nothing, this is an interpretation. So this interpretation was based not on solid archaeological evidence but rather on linguistic speculation combined with racial and civilization biases. At the time, there was widely held belief in the Europe that all major civilizations must have originated from the West, and any high culture in the East must have been brought by outsiders. However, the advent of modern scientific tools such as satellite imagery, genetic sequencing and carbon dating has allowed researchers to revisit these assumptions. We now know that the Indus Valley civilization, which flourished from around 7000 BCE to 1500 BCE, was not only one of the world's oldest urban cultures but also a highly advanced one. Cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Dholavira and Rakhigari, they displayed remarkable urban planning, drainage systems, trade networks and social organizations that long before most Western civilizations had even emerged. So what's even more significant is the cultural and civilizational continuity that runs through Indian history. From Harappan period to Vedic era and later through the Mauryas, Guptas, Cholas and many other great dynasties, India shows a consistent thread of spiritual thought, social structure, and cultural evolution. So, the philosophical ideas found in the Vedas are not a sudden import. One has to accept that. What is that? It is a matured expression of an already deep spiritual tradition, and that is rooted in the subcontinent. The Aryan invasion theory not only lacks credible evidence today but also done enormous harm to India's self-image and unity. It introduced artificial divides. Aryan versus Dravidian, North versus South, invaders versus native, all of which were amplified by colonial powers for political advantage. And these divisions, they are never part of Indian civilization thinking, which has always emphasized synthesis, coexistence, and cultural dialogue. It is, friends, now it's time, or time has come for India to reclaim its history based on evidence, not on outdated European assumptions. The Aryan invasion model has collapsed under the weight of new genetic, archaeological, and linguistic findings. What emerges instead is the image of India as a self-sustained ancient civilization, one that developed independently and contributed richly to the world's knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, yoga, medicine, philosophy, and literature. And at a time when many Western societies were still in tribal or pre-urban stages. So, history should be a source of collective pride and identity, not a tool of division or inferiority. That is what we want to raise the issue. And the truth is clear. Here, we are very clear. India was not the recipient of culture from outside invaders, but a cradle of civilization in its own right. The people of the Indus Valley were not overrun by Aryans. They were the ancestors of today's Indians. There was no cultural break. Rather, there was continuity, growth, and indigenous evolution. So, let us now teach and understand Indian history not through the colonial lens of invasion and conquest, but through the lens of civilizational continuity, cultural richness, and indigenous genius. The Aryan invasion theory is a relic of the past, and friends, it's time we must leave it there. That's all. I hope you will share my thoughts, and I again will request you to kindly tell your children, tell the new generation X, they must read it, they must know it, so that they will feel proud that they are born in Bharat. That's all for today. Stay tuned with Uday Bharat National and subscribe to Uday Bharat National. Bharat Mata Ki Jai.